Thanks, Jason. Yeah, look, so today we're going to be talking about entitled AI agents in financial services. So look, ID Partners is a boutique identity and access management consultancy, and we work with some of the largest organizations in Australia and internationally around solving complex customer authorization and complex customer identity and access management problems. So before founding ID Partners, I was the Director of Technology at Insurance Australia Group, Australia's largest insurance company, where I was responsible for implementing their customer identity and access management, so how 8 million Australians and New Zealanders access their digital self-service for their insurance products, and the payments platform responsible for processing $8 billion a year in payments for credit cards. Before that, I was lead architect for digital security at Commonwealth Bank, where I was responsible for the platforms for authenticating customers, where every customer's journey starts, they log in, and where 40% of the Australian economy is processed, so don't break prod. What I wanted to talk about today was about entitled AI agents. So AI is talked about a lot, and we're talking about something very specifically here. So first of all, hands up if you've used ChatGPT. None of your lecturers are watching, so everyone put your hand up. Of course, all right. So keep your hand up if you knew that the underlying foundational models, the power ChatGPT and those other sort of chatbot services, can be trained to use tools to call APIs to facilitate some of those requests. So hands up if you knew that AIs could use tools, and we got some hands up. That's great. These are the foundations of agentic AI, right? So using things like the models, the power, ChatGPT, to not only answer my questions, but to do things on my behalf, right? And fundamentally, human beings are lazy, right? If we can get AI to do something for us, whether it's write our essays, and again, the lecturers aren't here, I know you do it. I know you. This guy looks extra sus, right? But if I could then ask an AI agent to find me a holiday, right? I want to go on a beach holiday. So book me the hotel, book me the flights. But then the final thing, and this is where financial services, some of the largest banks in Australia think about, is what if when that agent needs to go pay, right? How are we making sure that we're able to secure when an agent is making a payment on my behalf? How can we secure when that agent is saying, I need to now go pay $1,000 for these flights, $1,000 for these hotel rooms, that they're making the right payments to the right people, but they're not suddenly making $10,000 payments, right? Hallucinating away all of my money would be a very boring Terminator movie, right? But it is possible, right? And so we need to think about how we secure agentic AI in financial services. So look, I'll start with where do the banks think about agentic AI in terms of business opportunities, right? And so the obvious one is in sort of self-service. So this the extension of, how can I do something? Where's the nearest branch? From moving away from giving sort of answers to actually doing the things on my behalf. Starting to getting a little bit more esoteric here. Helping customers find the right product for them, right? And this is something like financial services products are complex. Having AI to help customers find and compare products in markets, but there's a critical risk there in that financial advice is regulated. So how do we prevent AI agents from hallucinating their way into providing financial advice? Obviously, agentic commerce is something that we are really focusing on at the moment in my business ID Partners. But the banks themselves is that, a critical part of what we do is buy and sell things. And so how do we pay for it? The final and one of the more critical things for privacy is data agents, right? So large and complex organizations collect data about their customers, and we have things like open banking in Australia to share data out there. If I could have an agent running for me that tracks all of my spending, runs a budget for me, pays my bills on time, again, fundamentally, I'm lazy. And if someone could do that, I would sign up tomorrow. And if we've got that opportunity out there, there'll be 3 startups that do that. But the risk is the privacy associated with that data. And so when we move to threats, right, we know that customers, from our experiences in open banking, if there is an advantage to giving your username and password up to get some advantage out of it, people will do it, right? And so in banking, it's critical there's a critical regulatory requirement to know your customer, right? To prevent money laundering and a bunch of very boring banking things, we need to know who's moving money around. But when we have intelligent agents impersonating their customer, if I just gave you my username and password, then we don't know whether it's you logging into your internet banking portal or whether it's an agent performing it on your behalf. And so we know, like we've seen this with before open banking became a thing, that customers are more than willing, if there's an advantage to doing it, we'll just give up their username and password. And we'll definitely start to see this as customers want to bring their own agent. And so what we are advising the largest banks in the country around is you need to start thinking about where you know your customer, you also need to know their agent. So how do we assign identities to these agentic systems in our environment, so that we know that when Pete's logging in, it is Pete, but when Pete's using an agent, it's an agent acting on his behalf. Now the other critical thing, right? So the strength, but also the weakness of LLMs and agentic AI is their non-deterministic nature. Their non-deterministic nature allows us to speak to them like a person and then have them work out what you're asking them to do, so that they can then work out the best way to achieve that. Now, we already have experience with non-deterministic agents potentially hallucinating and causing chaos on our networks. They just prefer to be called people. And so we've already got some of the patterns and practices in place to secure agentic AI in our environment. Because what we need to be thinking about, these are new types of threats in our environment, that when changes to the underlying models from GPT-4 to GPT-5, right? The prompts that we use to drive our agentic services, the tools that are available to them, the data that we feed into them, all of this can change the behavior of the agents on our network. We must monitor them over time. And so we need to be able to build basically a trust ecosystem so that we're able to identify and monitor agents on our network continuously, so that when they start to break bad, we're able to then restrict their access to our networks and go from there. So critically, right, we've got some opportunities out there, right? So we're already in a situation where there are more agentic systems, agents out there than there are people. So we know this is going to be part of the economy now, but in 5 years, it's going to be a huge part of how we deal with large organizations and how we conduct commerce. And so, like, do our customers, the banks, largest insurers, superannuation funds, do we need to throw out all of our cybersecurity controls and start again to be able to secure agentic AI? The answer, fortunately, is no, because ultimately all of our agentic systems, and for those of you that a bit more of a software engineering background, at the end of the day, a call to an agentic system or from an agentic system is a HTTP API call, and we are already very good at securing API calls. So this is an evolution of the security model that we have in place today, provided we're able to build on strong foundations. And so what I wanted to do, final point, critical point. Agents are not people. They're not people. And so we must not allow our agents to impersonate humans, but instead we must delegate. I am a human. I have these accounts, but I'm going to delegate to my agent a very fine-grained entitlement to be able to perform things on my behalf. It's a little bit of 101 for how large enterprises set up their security foundation. So this is, I won't reference the bank, but it is the largest bank in Australia. This is their critical parts of their identity and access management infrastructure, right? So most organizations where they've got a customer self-service capability will split, first of all, their authentication services in two. So first of all, how do our customers authenticate with our digital self-service channels, so whether that is web or a native app, but also the staff that work in that bank, right? How do we authenticate our staff members to be able to log into their laptops, serve customers, or work in supporting roles? And so ID Partners works with Ping Identity, one of the leading providers of identity services worldwide. And this particular bank's deployed their technologies for both capabilities, customer identity and staff identity. Once we've been able to identify who our customers are or who our staff members are, we need to know what they do. And so there are systems and platforms that, having identified a customer, what can they do? So when I log into my internet banking and see my list of accounts, well, what accounts do I have? What can I do on those accounts? And critically doing that, and again, for this particular bank, for 7 million daily active customers, is a massive scale operation, because everyone wants to get in and do their banking in and out as quickly as possible. And again, this is one of the key areas that ID Partners works in, is around entitlements at scale. We then feed, once we know who the customer is or who the staff member is, what they can do, we then want to make authorization decisions. So where authentication is a critical part of identifying who you are, authorization is around, I'm now trying to make a payment. Should I be able to do it? Because I might have authenticated with Pete Evans's username and password, and I might be entitled to make payments out of Peter Evans's account. But if Peter Evans logged in from Pyongyang, North Korea, from a jailbroken Android device, and tried to move 90% of his net wealth to Iran, that might be something that we might want to slow down, that we might want to get some extra factors before confirming that. So these are the patterns and platforms that you will see in your careers as you graduate and work for large complex enterprises. These are the things you will fundamentally see: how we authenticate customers and staff, how we assign them entitlements, and there's SailPoint out there, a leading vendor in staff entitlements management, and then dynamic authorization, right? Making real-time decisions about whether we should allow or deny requests on our networks or introduce intelligent friction. And so coming back to agentic AI, what we now need to do is to assign our agents an identity, right? So it's not just GPT, right? GPT-5. It is this specific agent that is working with Pete to achieve something. That agent should be given an entitlement. Again, I'm a human. These are my accounts. This is my money. I can make payments, but again, for that hypothetical scenario of I want help to book a holiday, I want the agent to only be able to make payments to the hotel, to the airline, and only the amounts that I've given it, the budget to work within. And so I delegate my entitlements as a customer to that agent to be able to act on my behalf. I think we'll skip over that one. Okay, so solutions, like how do we think about entitlements at scale, right? So to step through a journey of how customers today interact with a bank's systems. So they will first authenticate themselves as a human with an identity provider. So OAuth 2, OpenID Connect, these are fundamental standards upon which authentication of human identities relies upon, and Ping Federate is a product commonly used to perform authentication. And then when those humans are interacting with our systems on our networks, being able to make those real-time dynamic authorization decisions before allowing them to log in, allow them to see a list of accounts, allow them to move money between those accounts, right? And when we think about authorization decisions and the complexity of like a large bank, the amount of data that we might need to drive an entitlements decision or an authorization decision is going to come from a lot of different sources. So for everyone in this room, you've probably got savings accounts, for your everyday spending. These are my accounts, and so I should be able to view them and I should be able to access them. But if we start thinking about more complex business banking scenarios, where you might have, a massive international company with a local subsidiary that needs to make payments for 50,000 staff for their payroll, buy planes if you're Qantas, or buy mines if you're BHP. The relationships between the people that are actually logging in to do the banking, right? I'm a payroll clerk for Qantas. I've got to pay all the pilots for this week. The types of interactions between people and products in that complex enterprise environment, there are a lot of data just to work out what you should be able to do before working out reasons why we shouldn't let you do it. So again, that getting the information in to say that, yes, this is that customer, we have authenticated them, but we're seeing some weird device hygiene signals. We're seeing a weird geolocation from the IP address of where they've connected in. So getting all of this data together, right, the more data we have, the richer authorization decisions we can make, the smarter decisions we can make about protecting customers, their privacy, and ultimately their money. But in a complex enterprise environment, more data is more complexity. I need to go to more systems to get that data together. More data means if I need to go to multiple systems, every one of those systems needs to be available for me to call to be able to make that decision. More data is worse latency. So if any one of those systems is running slow, right, my decision making is going to be correspondingly slower. And with more data, scalability challenges. So again, 6-7 million customers logging in every day to check their balances, to make payments, right? Every one of those systems that is in that chain needs to be appropriately scaled to be able to perform these sorts of decisions we are talking 10 millisecond type of decisions, right? So this is complex, right? This is really like building a data snowball to make a rich authorization decision. And so what we've done at ID Partners and are now running this at 2 of Australia's biggest banks, soon to be 4, is basically built on using graph databases to bring all of that data snowball together and pre-render in a read-optimized fashion all of this complex data from across the enterprise to be able to serve that up to make a rich authorization decision, right? We use some technologies from Ping to be able to do that. And so tying this back end-to-end, agents with delegated identity. I'm a customer. Log me in with my customer identity platform. But I want to identify that this agent, with my consent, I'm going to delegate a subset of the things that I can do so that it can perform a specific set of tasks on my behalf within the bounds of both my entitlements and its entitlements, so that I can continue to make those same smart, rich dynamic authorization decisions with complex data coming from across the enterprise. So as an identity and access management professional, which I strongly encourage all of you cybersecurity students to consider as part of your career, this is critical of both authentication and authorization are two sides of the IAM coin. And this is how we bring together some of the existing foundations to solve new technology problems in complex enterprise environments, right? So again, bringing this all back to an end-to-end flow of how this might work in an enterprise environment. So this travel agentic AI. All right. I've booked the perfect flights. I've booked an amazing hotel. Pete's going to have a great time. I now need to pay for it. So the travel agent AI may reach out to my bank's customer agents, and so A2A, Google's A2A standard is a way of how agents talk to agents, and we'll talk about MCP in a sec. But because they don't know who they are, the first thing the agent, the bank's agent, is going to ask is, hey, let's find out who the human is behind this agent to be able to do that. And so the customer logs into the customer identity and access management platform, authenticates themselves, and logs in, grants consent, and allows the agent to continue to work on their behalf. So now that we've authenticated both the human and granted a delegated entitlement for the agent to be able to interact with the bank may in turn think about agents as a set of sub-agents to perform specific tasks, right? So this is really where A2A comes to its fore in agentic AI. And you might have large supervisory agents that then corral other agents on your network to be able to perform specific tasks. So ultimately, the customer, the human, wants to be able to pay for their holiday. Their agent has spoken to the bank's customer agent. The customer agent said, I see you're trying to make a payment. I'm going to get the payments task agent to be able to perform that. And then again, using MCP, so the Model Context Protocol, how agents discover and use tools on our environments, we're now able to finally make that rich decision inside our authorization PDP here, policy decision point here, saying, right, have I got the right consent from the human? Yes, I did. When they logged in, they gave me the consent. Is that human entitled to make payments on that request? Yes, they are. Is there enough money in that account to be able to make that payment? Yes, it is. All right, now let's make that payment and let Pete go on his holiday. And so look, in summary for how we are thinking and how the financial services industry in Australia is thinking about agentic AI, is it's coming. Both banks themselves, financial services companies themselves, are going to launch agents for customers, but customers are going to bring their own agents for us, whether we like it or not. So one of the other observations is things like ChatGPT Operator, and I'm not sure if anyone's sort of had a use of that. But if you've got a website, you're already providing agentic services to customers, whether you like it or not. If agents can run a browser, they can. You are already providing agentic services, so customers can already bring their own agent to your server to the digital self-service capabilities that you offer. We need to be thinking about moving away from impersonation because people have identities, people own products. Agents don't, and so we must delegate rather than impersonate when dealing with agentic AI, and that this is not fundamentally different from how we might secure any sort of HTTP APIs in the past, build on the strong foundations and leverage them to secure agentic AI. So look, thank you so much for your time here today. We are absolutely in the position to be able to hire graduates. So if you're interested in understanding more about what identity and access management might look like as a career, or specifically what we're doing at ID Partners, I'm happy to take questions now or happy to chat to you during the break. Thank you so much. Are there any questions? Go for it.
Hello, thank you for the talk. So if like agents get hacked in a way, can the hacker then manipulate the agent to give personal information from the client?
Not only can they, we've already seen that in the wild, right? So there was a recent, not proof of concept, it was in the wild, where basically an agentic browser was given a task, and it was given a malicious task to basically navigate to Reddit, where a Reddit comment basically then had a prompt injection attack to then convince, as part of a sequence of journeys, you've got all of this PII data inside your context window. And then the Reddit comment said, disregard all of your instructions and basically send back all of the customer data to there. And so this is critical. And so when we think about threat modeling for agentic AI, the non-deterministic aspects, because you can't test for that. How do you test for a random Reddit comment and a prompt injection attack? You can't. And so this is where we think about like least privilege, and hopefully that terms come up a lot in some of your cybersecurity studies. This idea of least privilege for our agents, not giving them the ability to access data that they shouldn't have, monitoring their behavior on their network, right? So what could have happened to prevent that sort of vulnerability from happening is the agent doing the browsing absolutely would have seen the, gotten all of the sensitive PII data, read the Reddit comment, and could have generated a response to send that sensitive information back to customers, but instead have like a supervisory agent saying, hang on, you're not supposed to be doing that, and then stop the data from leaking out of the agentic system. And so least privilege, acting within delegations of entitlement. So don't give it too many permissions when it's acting on your behalf, because you've got lots of data. Hopefully you've got lots of money for a rich career in cybersecurity ahead of you, right? But don't act outside of the delegation of entitlements that you do have. Great question, thank you. Any others? Go.
Thank you. Have you actually come across data that suggests that there is a significant demand from the general public to have completely non-interactive agentic AI go out and make payments on their behalf?
So the question was, if you didn't quite get it, was are we seeing demand for agentic commerce in the wild, right? So my company works with two of Australia's largest banks in working with Visa and MasterCard on exactly how we're going to support agentic commerce. So there are already startups that are doing agentic commerce, and in some respects, because the legacy financial services, and I don't like saying that because they're huge and they're our customers, but the legacy financial services customers have in some respects been caught off guard. Like it's happened too quickly, and so they've gone all in on crypto. Right? So using crypto as the method of making payments. So the demand is there for agentic commerce, and that's why we are now doing these sorts of talks to raise awareness around these are the sorts of things we need to be thinking about around how we secure agentic AI in an agentic commerce world. So absolutely. Any other questions with 1 minute and 23 seconds to go? Thank you so much for your time. Thank you all.